do have a few important safety reminders. Want to make sure to remain seated. Keep those hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the truck at all times. Now, this does include little ones as well. They need to be either on your lap or in the seat next to you. There's no standing or lifting of anyone in the air on the safari. Now, we also want to be sure to not make any noises to the animals, as we are just visitors in their homes. Now, with that being said, we're going to head on into Little Aturi Forest. A lot of the animals in the forest like to use different shades of browns and stripes in order to camouflage in their surroundings. And I see our first one on the right. She's hanging out in the bottom left corner of our yard. Now that's an okapi. The okapi looks a little like a deer wearing zebra party pants, but they're actually the only known relative to the giraffe. Now we know this partially because of their long prehensile tongue and the fact that the males have ossicones. They're kind of like little horns on top of their head. It's actually part of their skull structure. But just how we know that's a female because she doesn't have them. On our right, walking alongside us, is the bongo. Now, the bongo are known as the ghosts of the forest. They're not seen very often out in the wild, but they are the largest forest antelope in Africa. Now, for them, both males and females have horns, and it was once believed that you could tell their gender based on whether or not those horns cross behind them. But we now know that to be a myth. Those horns will cross for both genders. But I do know this is a female coming up on our right because of how light her coat is. The males have much darker coats. They also have thicker horns. A few more bongos on the hill to the right. But coming up on the left is a black rhino. Let's see his backside over here in the second yard. Now the black rhino is the smallest of the African rhinos, weighing at about 3,000 pounds. Now unfortunately, they are critically endangered. There's less than 5,000 of them in the wild. But good news is that those numbers are on the rise thanks to conservation efforts. Now the difference between a black and a white rhino is not their color. They are both gray. So let's say their mouth shapes. So the black rhino has a smaller mouth with an upper lip in the shape of a V, while the white rhino has a wider mouth, more so in the shape of a U. Coming up on our left, this cute couple over here, the black and white birds with the colorful bills, are the saddle-billed stork. That's the largest stork in Africa with quite the impressive wingspan of about 9 feet, which is nearly the width of the canopy above your head. Now they do mate for life, but you can tell male from female based on the color of their eyes. Males have brown eyes and females have yellow eyes. Now we're going to make our way out of the forest and into the Safi River. The Safi River is home to much more aquatic animals, so I always recommend to keep your eyes filled on the waters below, typically where they like to hang out during the day. And coming up on our right, these large white birds are the pink-backed pelicans. Now they get their name because during mating season their skin turns pink, and they do mate for life, but they're also colonial nesters. So out in the wild, you'll saw groups of around 20 to 500 pairs altogether. And their wingspan is slightly smaller than that, the stork is about 7 to 9 feet. On our left is a float of Nile hippopotamus. They kind of look like rocks over there beneath the water. Now hippos are nocturnal, can hold their breath for up to 8 minutes, so usually during the day you find them asleep under the water. And then at night is when they venture outside of it, traveling up to 6 miles in search of food. Now hippos stand at 5 feet tall, 11 feet long, and 5,500 pounds. So while they can swim, they typically choose not to. They don't like to luggo that weight around while they do, so instead you find them walking along the floor of the river. Helps them to conserve their energy. However, when they are on land, they can go pretty fast. They can run at about 30 miles an hour. Coming up ahead on our left is the Nile crocodile. Now they are the second largest of the crocodilian species, just behind the American crocodile, at about 16 feet long and weighing on average 500 pounds. Now you may have noticed that they were all very still. This is because crocs have really slow metabolisms, so they have to conserve as much energy as possible by staying still. The Nile crocodiles are also ectothermic or cold-blooded, meaning they can't regulate their own body temperature. So in order to stay warm, they'll hang out in the sun, but if they get too warm, they'll just open their mouth, and it helps them to release any excess heat they may have. So it's a little like panting that a domesticated dog may do. Coming up on our right, this really large tree is the baobab tree. Looks a little like it's upside down, almost like roots are growing out on top, because for 9 months out of the year, there aren't any leaves on it. Instead, any water that it does receive will be stored in the trunk. That trunk can hold about 30,000 gallons in it. So in case water ever does get scarce, both locals and animals can tap into the trunk and use it as a resource. So it's incredibly important to the ecosystem out there, and it's also how it gets the nickname the Tree of Life. Now the next stop on our safari is the Savannah. You'll notice that the Savannah is much more open. There's a lot less places for animals to camouflage or hide, so you'll typically find faster ones than you would in the forest or the river. Now there is a Maasai giraffe immediately to our right, but before we talk about them, I want to talk about the newest resident on the reserve up ahead. On the right there is a baby Hartman's mountain zebra. She was born about a month ago. There's another baby out there also born about a month ago. They're about a week apart. Now they're each hanging out with Mom over here. This is the Hartman's mountain zebra. You can tell they're the Hartman's because of their stripe pattern. They have thicker stripes in their hind legs, one stripe down the middle of their stomach. They're also the only zebra with a dewlap. It's a skin fold under their neck. Helps them to regulate their body temperature. And that subspecies are excellent climbers, so they have smaller hooves and bigger hearts just for that. Now we'll hopefully catch up with the other baby up ahead. But on our left, if you look in the like the back left corner over here, are the African painted dogs. They're all laying down back there. Now they're one of the most successful hunters in all of Africa with about a 70 to 90% success rate. This is in part because of their great communication and the fact that they can maintain a speed of 37 miles an hour for 3 miles. In fact, during the Ice Age, they nearly hunted lions into extinction. This was before lions knew how to hunt as a pride, so they took a few notes of these dogs. On our left through the bushes with the horns pointed backwards are the sable antelope. Now they're the official emblem of the Harambe Wildlife Reserve, as they're one of the only prey that'll fight back against their predators, making them incredibly strong. Just in front of the sable antelope though, with the large horns, are the Ankoli cattle. Now they're one of the 2 domesticated animals on the reserve, and they were domesticated for monetary purposes. So they're seen as a sign of great wealth out in Africa. And those horns may look heavy, but they're actually hollow on the inside. There's a honeycomb-like structure, and it helps with blood flow. It allows them to regulate their body temperature. On our left, we're going to spot another Maasai giraffe. This is the tallest subspecies of giraffe, and a group of them is called a tower because they quite literally tower over every other animal in the world, standing at about 16 to 18 feet tall. Usually females are around 16 feet, while males are around 18 feet. And they're going to spend most of their day eating, around 12 hours of the day. Only 30 minutes of it will be spent sleeping, and they won't do this all at once. They sleep in 2-minute increments, standing up with their eyes open. We'll see one baby zebra on our right, but we're going to see another one coming up ahead. Now, zebras in general have thicker teeth and a better digestive system than a lot of the other animals out on the savanna. So they're able to eat a wider variety of vegetation compared to other animals such as antelope or wildebeest. Now, I mentioned they were each born about a month ago, but they are already standing, walking, and running. This is because when zebras are born, they can start walking 30 minutes after birth. It's because their legs are nearly fully grown. They're almost the same size as the adults when they're born. There's another tower of giraffes on our left, another one walking up ahead on our right. Now, they spend most of their day eating because they're what's known as ruminants, meaning they have 4 stomach chambers. So they'll eat their food and digest it, and then digest it again and again and again. Now, just past this giraffe on our right, if you look to the top of the hill, there are some really small antelopes lying down up there. You just barely see them, but they are the springbuck. Their name means springing buck after a jump they do called pronking. They'll jump 6 feet in the air, leap 13 feet across at the same time. Now, they'll do this whenever they're nervous, excited, during mating season, or they just want to show off. Now, they stand at a whopping 2 to 3 feet tall, but can actually reach speeds of 55 to 60 miles an hour. They're one of the fastest land animals in the world. On the left, this brother and sister duo just came out. These are the eland. Now, they're one of the largest antelopes in Africa, getting to be about 2,000 pounds and 6 feet tall. And during mating season, males will fashion a sort of flower crown on their head. So they'll gather sticks, leaves, even small trees, and position it in their horns as a way to woo ladies. Now, we are coming up on some fallen over trees up ahead, which is often a sign that we'll be encountering some larger animals, potentially some that have knocked these trees down with their body weight. And I already see them coming up on our right. On the right is the African elephant. You'll see he's using his trunk quite a bit. So their trunks are prehensile, which just means finger-like, so they can bend in many directions and easily grasp onto things. There's also an estimated 40,000 muscles in their trunks alone, which, for reference, we've only got about 600 in our entire bodies. Now, because there's so many muscles in their trunks, they're incredibly strong. They can hold up to 700 pounds at a time. And you'll see them use it for many different purposes, as it's made up of their upper lip and nose. Now, we're actually going to make our way over to another yard where I know some other members of the herd sometimes like to hang out, so we'll see if they're out today. Now on the reserve is the African bush elephant, the largest of the 3 subspecies. Slightly smaller is the African forest elephant, and then smallest of all is the Asian elephant. Now the African bush elephant is also the largest land animal in the world, and that guy that we just saw on our right, he's actually the largest on the reserve. He weighs nearly 13,000 pounds, eats about 300 pounds of food per day, which is pretty standard for the average African elephant. Now he'll also be celebrating his 42nd birthday at the end of the year. Elephants will continue to grow until they're about 35 to 40, but their average lifespan is between 60 and 70 years. Now before we reach that second elephant yard, we're going to pass through some red clay pits. Now elephants will dig their tusks into the red clay pit and eat it as a way to get in any extra minerals that they may lack in their diets. A few more members of the herd coming up on our left. But the red clay can also be used as a sunscreen. Elephants have really sensitive skin, so they'll use that strong trunk of theirs in order to throw mud, red clay, sand, water, dirt, really anything they can find. Throw it on their back and it'll act like a natural skin protectant. Now another way that they beat the heat though is to flap their ears. So just by doing that, they can lower their body temperature by about 15 degrees because there's so many blood vessels in their ears that by flapping them, it cools the blood down, which is then recirculated throughout their body. Now, one of my favorite facts about elephants is that they're female-led and female-followed. So when males reach maturity, which is usually at around 12 to 15 years old, they're going to separate from that female family unit, but they're not going to get too far behind. They know that that matriarch knows where she's going during migration season, so they'll usually follow around a mile behind her, oftentimes forming a bachelor herd of their own. So you can get a good view of those elephants coming up on our left. And this is their watering hole. Elephants drink quite a bit of water per day, up to 50 gallons, with each trunk full being about a gallon. That's why there's a baobab tree in their yard on the left. They're definitely one of those animals known to dig their tusks into the trunk to access the water in case it ever does get scarce on the savannah. Coming up on our left is a flamboyance of greater flamingos. These are the largest type of flamingos, getting to be about 5 feet tall, and they're also the lightest shade of pink. Now they get that pink from the beta carotene found in the brine shrimp that they eat. But when they first hatch, they have gray feathers. At around 2 years old is when those feathers will start to turn white. And then with the more brine shrimp that they eat and the more beta carotene they consume, they'll turn more pink. Now, if you guys have a chance to stop by the Tree of Life later today, there's a flamboyance of lesser flamingos over there. They're going to be smaller and a brighter pink, and they're usually found hanging out with the lappet-faced vulture as a red kangaroo. Now sometimes on our left is where we can find the white rhinos. Now I'm not seeing them out right now, but we do typically have pretty good luck as we continue throughout the savannah. But it looks like I see one on our right. Maybe we'll find the rest of the crush later on. Now white rhinos are the largest of the African rhinos, weighing about 5,000 pounds. And they're usually found hanging out in these mud pits to our left because just like elephants, they've also got that sensitive skin. So they like to roll around in the mud, works as their natural sunscreen, but they can also scratch up on a nearby tree, get any sort of insects or parasites onto them. Kind of works like a natural bug repellent. Coming up on our left, I already see one walking around. There is a cheetah up there. She's going to be in the back left corner. Just barely able to see her. She does blend in really well with her surroundings. Oh, there's another cheetah. See the cheetah, baby? Now, cheetahs are unlike any other cat you'll find out in the wild. There's another one walking in the second yard up ahead. Now, they can reach speeds of 65 to 70 miles an hour in about 3 seconds, but can only hold this for a few hundred yards before becoming physically exhausted. In fact, after they catch their prey, they need about 30 minutes to catch their breath, and this does waste precious time. They're often run off by larger predators stealing their prey. They lose about 50% of their meals this way. So because of this, they have to adapt their diurnal, which means they'll do most of their activity and hunting during the day, while many large predators are nocturnal. They'll do their hunting at night and it lessens the competition. On our right, you can just barely see them. There's some water bunk up there through the bushes. Now, like their name suggests, they're usually found near water. They drink an unusually large amount for antelopes. And you typically smell them before you see them. They release a really smelly oil that helps to deter large predators, tell each other apart, and to keep their fur waterproof. I can tell all those water buck were females because they don't have horns, only the males do. And on our left, there is a lion taking a little cat nap over there on the Kobe Rocks.
Oh, yeah.
We're assuming there's a little better view, and maybe we'll find that female hanging out with him as well. Like I said, this is the Kobe Rock Formation, which is a popular place for predators, as it provides great shade throughout the savannah and a great vantage point for scoping out prey. Looks like that female is just behind him on the rock above him. There's the rest of the crash of white rhinos on our right, but we're going to circle back around and see them again in a second. As for these lions on our left, right now they're doing what they do best. Lions are going to rest for about 16 to 20 hours of the day. At night is when they'll do their hunting. Their night vision is 6 times better than ours. And it's usually the females that do the hunting, while the males will stay back and defend the pride. This is typically because the females are a bit more agile than those males. But lions are the most social of the big cats, living in those family groups called prides. Now we're going to catch up with the white rhinos, and I did spot a few ostrich over there as well. Now a group of rhinos is called a crash because they have such poor eyesight that they're often found crashing into each other. They can only clearly see about 10 feet in front of them and can run at 35 miles an hour. So they have to rely on that great sense of smell and hearing in order to understand their surroundings. But you do see those ostrich as well on our right. Now the ostrich is the largest bird in the world, but despite this, their brain is only the size of a marble. Their eyes are actually bigger than their brain, but I wouldn't underestimate them. They weigh about 400 pounds. Their kick can take down nearly any predator that does approach, and they can run at 40 miles an hour, making them the fastest bird on land. And while they do have wings, they can't fly. They actually use those wings to keep balance while they run. And on our right, there are some ostrich eggs on the ground over there to the right of that path, almost over your right shoulder. Now there's only females on the reserve, so those eggs are not fertilized. However, if they were, it takes about 40 days for them to hatch, and they weigh about the same as 2 dozen chicken eggs. Now we know there's only females on the reserve, partly because of the color of their feathers. You may have noticed they were gray. Males will have darker, almost black ones, and we do believe this is because of camouflage. So during the day, females will lay on the eggs, hence the lighter feathers, while at night the males will lay on them. Now we are approaching the warden's post, which is a sign that we're nearing the village of Harambe once again. But it looks like the warden has one last animal for us to see. On our left are the Nigerian dwarf goats. Now they're the other domesticated animal on the reserve, and they are domesticated for their milk. And if you want the opportunity to pet these goats, if you head on over to Rafiki's Planet Watch, take the train to Conservation Station. There is where you'll find the affection section, where you can pet the Nigerian dwarf goats as well as some other domesticated animals like pigs, cows, donkeys, and sheep. Now it does look like our safari is coming to an end. Unfortunately, a lot of the animals that we saw out there today are facing habitat loss in the wild. So if you want to get involved and help them out, one thing you can do is to recycle your old electronics. Now inside them is a mineral called coltan, and coltan is currently being mined where a lot of our forest friends live, like the okapi or the bongo, and it's forcing them out of their habitat. Now lucky for us, coltan is 100% recyclable. So if you have any old watches, laptops, phones, cameras lying around, I do urge you to take them into your local electronics store, turn them in to recycle them, and you can do your part in saving these animals. Now I do want to say Asante Sana. Thank you all so much for riding my safari today. Again, my name is Mallory. If you have any questions about the animals we saw out there, or you just want to say hi to me all about your favorite one, feel free to come to my window once we dock. It's quite literally always open, and I will do my best to answer any questions you may have. Now I do hope you all get involved in additional conservation efforts. Big part of conservation is education, so I encourage you guys to continue to educate yourself on these animals, not only during your time here in the park, but also in your day-to-day life. Now if you want to take advantage of those educational opportunities found here in the park, we're actually going to drop you right at the entrance of the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail. That's the perfect place to start. That's about a 15 to 20 minute self-guided walking trail where you can meet the western lowland gorilla, as well as meerkats, naked mole rats, the Grevy zebra, and an underwater viewing area for hippos. And then if you make your way over to Asia, that's where you'll spot my favorite animal, the Sumatran tiger, on the Maharaja Jungle Trek. It's actually really cool that we even get to see the Sumatran tiger. There's less than 500 of them in the wild. And while you're over there, you can also spot a water buffalo, as well as a Komodo dragon, and a type of giant bat called flying foxes, and an exotic bird aviary. Now, I already mentioned Rafiki's Planet Watch. It's where you can pet those Nigerian dwarf goats. But there are a few other things you can do there. There's also a conservation corner where you can learn all about how the Disney Conservation Fund is helping out animals from all around the world. There's even a special section on the African painted dogs that we saw here today, as there's less than 5,000 of them in the wild. Their biggest threats being habitat loss and snares. There's also the animation experience. You can learn how to draw some of your favorite Disney characters from a Disney animator. And lastly, there's an inside look at the veterinary clinic. So you can learn about the diets of some of the animals here, check out some reptiles and amphibians, and then watch any scheduled veterinary procedures for the day. Now, if there are any scheduled vet procedures, they typically happen first thing in the morning. So I recommend heading on over there as soon as you can. And those procedures will be posted on a TV next to the veterinary clinic over at Conservation Station. Now, if I have any Wilderness Explorers on board, your code is symbol 1. And friends, here in Harambe, we don't like to say goodbye. It's far too sad and far too final. So instead we choose to say Kwaherini, which means to go well. So Kwaherini, everyone. Go well, go wild, go make a difference out there. Hope you guys had a fantastic time out on the reserve, and have your rest of your day here at Disney's Animal Kingdom, or wherever your next adventure may take you. On the right,